There's not going to be any like formal introduction. We're just like when the actual thing is published, we're just going to like jump straight into us chatting.
Yeah.
So on that note, when I was getting ready for this call, I remembered 6, 7, 8 months ago you mentioned you were getting into latte art, right? Into like the whole coffee scene.
Yeah.
And the reason I mention it is like the last 2 or 3 weeks I've been really into espresso machines.
Oh, yeah.
Right? I'm really researching espresso machines. I'm trying to find the right one for me, and like this whole setup. And I'm looking into it really deeply. So how's the latte stuff going? And do you have any? And are you into espresso as well, or is it more like latte stuff?
Yeah, these days it's more. I'm more on the espresso side, mostly because I have a little baby daughter, Valentina, and she's keeping us busy during the night. But
Yes.
I'm still like I've completed my second course on the barista training, so
Okay.
I do have one more training to come, and then I'm like a fully certified barista.
Nice. That's really cool. So do you have like a home setup of the espresso machine, or like is it somewhere you go to do it?
I have like I got myself during the first lockdown like a proper espresso machine, and I really enjoy it. Like I love it. It's been one of the best investments I did in the past few years.
Yeah. That's what people keep telling me, and I keep reading on Reddit and stuff. So I've joined like the espresso subreddit. I'm doing mad amount of research. So if you've got like recommendations for me in terms of what products to get, let me know.
Yeah, I'll probably drop you some links on Slack. I started this whole journey by basically watching tons of YouTube videos, and I really enjoyed Jim Hoffman. I think he's London or UK based, and he's such a nice guy.
Cool.
He's so amazing.
Yes. I think I've watched like 20 of his videos over the last 2 weeks, so I really like his stuff too. But yeah, make sure you send me some product recommendations. Okay, let's get back into like what we should be discussing, which is like the DXP space, Storyblok, yourself. So why don't we start with you? What were you doing before Storyblok? What was your journey towards Storyblok? How did that all come about?
Sure. So my journey. I mean, if I take back my whole professional life, my journey basically started 11, 12 years ago when I started to work for an agency after I finished my bachelor degree, and that's what I would call first proper job, basically led to my interest in online marketing, digital marketing. So it was like a typical full service marketing agency who was building different websites, different basically marketing campaigns online for different industries, verticals, and countries. And it sort of made me realize that I really want to dive deeper in the whole marketing space. And as I was working with all those different clients, it was really a big learning step for me. And I basically did that for close to 4 years. And during that time, I started to study again. I lived in Dublin for half a year, and once I came back, I sort of realized that I want to do something different. And I also sort of realized that I want to go and move to a company instead of working at an agency, because sure, at the agency, you would be dealing with all different types of companies, which is great. But on the other side, you would usually look at a dedicated project start and a dedicated project finish. And I realized that I want to dive deeper and be more in control of, let's say, the whole marketing execution side of things. So I made the transition to one of the largest media publishers in Austria. I worked there, and this was still during my master's degree as a technical project manager, again, working for one of the biggest, basically, newspapers in Austria, and help them build some mobile apps and get some cool digital initiatives live. And once I finished my master's studies, I sort of put myself out there. If I want to go the corporate route, right? Do I want to work for a big company? Do I work for a big known brand? And do what you would call a career and follow a career path, or do I want to do something different? Back then, this was 2014, end of 2014, beginning of 2015. I decided to start as a startup. I had no idea about the tech space, besides me just doing online marketing, digital marketing for those two companies. And still, I ended up at Usersnap, which was back then a small B2B software as a service company operating out of Austria, but already back then serving a global audience of developers and technical people who were basically looking for a bug tracking tool. And that company, that job really made me fall in love with software as a service. And basically since then I've been here in the tech space. I've been here in the software as a service space, and I still love it. Like 8 years later, it's there is so much cool stuff going on in tech, and it's such an evolving space that I can't imagine doing anything else. And so I basically did that for 4 years. Once again, decided to move to a larger corporate and see how that sticks with me. And basically after that, I've been running my own, what I would call CMO as a service freelance business, where I've helped small, big SaaS companies build up their marketing. That's how I got to know Storyblok. That's how I got to know in touch with Dominic and Alex, our two co-founders, when they were looking to basically build up the marketing inbound side of Storyblok.
Okay, and you joined Storyblok in... was it after the pandemic began, right?
It was after the pandemic began. It was mid 2020, August, September 2020. And back then, Storyblok were, from a team perspective, were, I believe, around 20 people. The story of Storyblok goes back until 2017 when Dominic and Alex started the business. Yeah. And in the first few years, they were basically building out the product, really building out product market fit. To be honest, I couldn't believe Dominic's numbers that he shared with me on what they were able to achieve with a two people team, and later on as a 5 people team, and later on as a 20 people team. They were growing like crazy already back then, but the team size wasn't that farther down the road. It was an awesome, like, that made me really hooked with Storyblok, because I saw, like, I've been in all my previous jobs, I've been involved in website decisions, CMS decisions. So if I look at Dynatrace, where I've worked in the digital marketing team, Usersnap, in the agency life, I've been the person running the website. I've been either the person or working in the team being responsible for the CMS decisions. And so I've already felt quite passionate about the whole CMS space before, but when I just saw the traction that Storyblok was seeing, I just had to take the opportunity and join the team.
Yeah. And we'll definitely come back to the traction in a minute, because 2021 was a big year for Storyblok. But yeah, I mean, on the subject of the co-founders, Dominic and Alex, I met them in 2018 in what I think was the very early stages, right? So we had somehow got into contact in 2018, and then we stopped being in contact, and then they happened to be in London at one point, and I was in London obviously at that time, and he just emailed me and just said, "Hey, do you want to meet for a coffee?" And it happened to work out. We just met for a quick coffee, and we were just getting to learn about each other's businesses, basically. And I just got a vibe from them at that point, right? They just seemed really focused. They seemed like they were being really productive with their time. Just they reminded me of what a tech startup founder or co-founders should be like. They were like that typical, very focused, productivity focused, straight to the point. And I remember sort of leaving that meeting thinking, like, at that point Storyblok was small, or quote unquote small, but I remember thinking, these guys, I think they're going to do something. So it was really interesting. And I imagine you got the same feeling.
Absolutely. I think that's by the nature of who they are as people, and how they now built or started to build Storyblok in the first place. So it's definitely a culture, people thing. And it's also a thing about them being obsessed with the problem, right? Them being obsessed about the space, and really providing the best CMS experience out there for their clients. Because if you look at the reason why Dominic and Alex started Storyblok in the first place, it was because they had to solve their own challenges when they were working at the agency. So back in 2015, because the one of the fun, maybe more fun things is Storyblok as a company officially was founded in 2017, but Dominic and Alex, them working for one of the largest agencies in the DACH region, they've been dealing with building Storyblok since 2015, when back at the time their previous enterprise CMS basically told them that they're going to shut down the business. So at that point in time, Dominic and Alex were tasked with the project to look for a new solution. Back in 2015, they were, on the one hand side, seeing the traditional CMS space, right? The traditional market that we all know, which provides a lot of value to, and still does today, to the business users, right? We all like to use these nice visual interfaces that those traditional systems offered. But on the other hand, most developers are not that happy with using those monolithic traditional CMS systems because of all the legacy that comes with that. And on the other hand, they were seeing the first headless systems, the first headless API-first content management systems coming out, which were really beloved and great from the developers because now developers got all the freedom to really build great stuff, be it on the internet or somewhere else. But this first generation headless CMSs weren't really that user-friendly for the editors and marketing audience. And that mixture, that situation back then made them work on Storyblok in the first place for the agency. And there was no idea in the first place of maybe we do an own product. The main intention was, let's give our agency clients a CMS they enjoy using. And within those first 2 years, basically between 2015 and 2017, they realized that, hey, there's such a big market for that. It seems to be working not only for our agency clients, but beyond that, let's spin that out of the agency. Let's start Storyblok. And that's how everything started in 2017.
Okay, well, since we started talking about this, let's continue down this road, because it was something I wanted to come to later on. And it is the, Storyblok's vision when it comes to marketers and business users and developers. Okay, we've got that down, right? We've got headless CMS here. You've got your freedom. Now it's time to refocus back on, okay, how can we make the actual marketer experience as autonomous as possible, as user friendly as possible, and as fast as possible, without having to sort of draft in developers at every turn, right? So why is that important, first and foremost? And secondly, maybe you can tell me a bit more about, what marketers should know about this space, right? Like why is this next year, 2 years in this space important for marketers? What can they expect, or what should they expect, should I say?
It's a great topic, and I'm a marketer myself, so I feel there's still a lot of room to be done for the marketing audience in the general headless / DXP space. But maybe I'll start with one thing, and it goes back to our origin, because as said, Storyblok sits on the foundation, and up until this point, everything we do with the assumption that we want to build the best headless CMS experience for all audiences, be it developers, be it editors, be it marketers, whatever job title is. At the end of the day, we want to give businesses a tool, a CMS that they enjoy using, because we believe if your team enjoys using a system, a tool, a software, you will create better experiences for your end users, for your clients, be it in e-commerce, be it on websites, be it for mobile apps, smartwatches, any front end in that sense you can really think of. So everything we do at Storyblok is guided by that promise. And as we go into 2022 and beyond, we still believe that that's the thing we should be and are most obsessed with. So how can we, as Storyblok, provide the biggest value, not only for developers, not all marketers, but really bring both on the same plate, on the same table, and give them a tool that they really absolutely love using, because that will make them do more cool stuff for their clients. What does that mean for the whole space where we go? I think we if I draw back to my personal experience, I've been using plenty of traditional systems in the agency. I've been using modern Jamstack static site generators in also my previous SaaS experiences. And the funny thing is, I've even talked at the global Typo 3 conference in 2015 about content and how that's impacting marketers. And what I've always found is that there's always this gap between the marketing audience and the IT audience. And headless in the first place hasn't really helped with that, right? Because headless CMS in the first place came to life as a big benefit for the developer audience. So most naturally, most marketers were like, and to some degree still are, that's not for me. That's for someone else. That's for my colleagues in IT. And at the end of the day, we wanna change that at Storyblok, because I believe the marketing audience, the marketers, myself, we need to become more technical in order to be part of marketing technology decisions. And a CMS is a marketing technology decision. So we need to build up the IT knowledge. We need to be open to have those conversations with IT, with tech, to really make smarter decisions on the MarTech space. But at the same time, we as vendors need to serve the marketing audience as well. We need to provide you with the benefits that you as a marketer, really need. And we need to speak your language, if I would put it that way as well.
Yes, that's a very good point, and one we may come back to in a minute. And I find it interesting because I think you just touched on it there, right? Where the CMS is now, it always has been part of this, the MarTech in a company. But I think when between maybe 2016, 2019, when headless CMS space was very developer focused, marketers, CMOs, they were sort of less involved in that buying process, because it was like, well, look, guys, we're looking at technology that's kind of like developer focused. You guys will really get it anyway. Trust us. We'll build something for you later on that will work. But now it's like, there are vendors, again, Storyblok, we could talk about Storyblok's marketer-friendly features that have come out recently as well in a moment. But I think the more that happens, it's like a cycle, right? The more these features creep into the products, the more companies are saying, oh, okay, there are actually marketer features here now. Let's get the CMO involved in this decision. And the more those features come about, the more those CMOs will be making those decisions, and marketers and content authors will be making the decision on, actually, this product is what we want, because it's got this, and that. And, they're going to be a sort of a bigger stakeholder now in those decisions. So, yeah, it's just an interesting time, I think, where the more we go, the more it's going to bring that into play. So why don't you tell me a little bit more about what Storyblok's actually done to address that problem?
Sure. So,
in terms of features.
I think that the first and probably most important thing that we've done is we want to give editors, marketers a tool they really enjoy using. And by that, I mean, we give marketers a CMS that is really user-friendly, easy to use in general. And especially if I look at features and capabilities like our visual editor that allows you to preview content in real time while you change it, while you create it. That's a really big thing, given, and that's not just me speaking from a Storyblok perspective, but what we hear from our customers, from our marketers that use Storyblok. Because at the end of the day, yes, headless is great from, let's decouple the front end, the back end, let's be ready for an omni-channel publishing world. But usually that meant in the first place that it wasn't quite easy for marketers and editors to actually really change content, see how that change looks like, and preview it in real time, because it still is a technical product to some degree and still requires the dev pipeline to be started and so on and so forth. So I guess what I'm saying is we give marketers and editors a simple tool to actually make it super easy to change content, create content, delete content, update content, with the main goal of, yes, let's give you a tool that you enjoy using, but also, obviously, there's the business benefit of, let's be able to launch marketing campaigns faster. Let's be able to create new landing pages faster. Let's let's rely less on IT involvement when you do so, because a lot of times, be it headless or non-headless monolithic CMS, we would hear marketers, editors complain about IT involvement and that there's too much IT involvement, for example, for simplest changes. And that's really something that we believe we solve with Storyblok by giving both groups a really easy to use tool that they can use in the simplest form, and still being able to collaborate. We're not saying that you lose the collaboration part. We believe it's important to collaborate, marketing and IT, but the involvement for simple changes, for example, for marketers should be in full control on marketing, and IT should focus on cool stuff, building cool new experiences, because at the end of the day, developers don't enjoy updating content on a website, for example, for their marketing team. That should be the job of the marketers in the first place. So yeah, at the end of the day, from a capability perspective, we see that on the visual editor. The second part to maybe highlight is the way we think about components, the way we think about reusing components, using shared components across websites, across experiences, across languages. Because if you think of a simple front end like a website, what a lot of marketers spend a lot of time on is copy pasting content from one landing page, for example, to another. And we believe that there's a lot of potential in not only in time saving, but in providing better experiences for your users if you use components that have shared sections. So think of simple components like a navigation. A navigation should always be the same. You shouldn't care too much if it's that English website, an Italian website, or whatsoever. It should be just easy to update once and roll out globally. Or think about header sections. If you want to reuse that, you shouldn't copy paste them, and it might break your design and it might break something else because you put a longer copy there. So marketers shouldn't care about those issues. They should focus on telling the right stories, creating the right experiences for their users.
Yes. Yeah, that's a really good point. And I was going to ask him, I was going to go back to sort of 2021, but you said something else that interested me here. And it's just giving me an idea, right? So you mentioned there about, I think you mentioned languages or something like that just now, something about languages, right? And I know Storyblok takes language very seriously. I know you guys are working hard on making multilingual experiences very easy and possible for companies to launch. And it got me thinking, because of Storyblok's geographical location, right? I compare it to some of the American and Canadian-based CMSs out there. They're very much less so focused on that for obvious reasons, right? They're in a place where English is very widely spoken. They've got 300 million population there who speaks English, tons of startups and tech companies who they can focus on. And it got me thinking, European CMSs as Storyblok is, I think it gives them sort of like a unique spin on where their growth can and should take them. And I wonder if it gives you an advantage, right? Where it's like, well, we hire so many different people in our company that speak different languages. We've got French speakers, English speakers, German speakers. Everybody's here, and so you sort of look at the world through that lens, that European lens, if you will, or just that international. Let's call it international lens. I wonder if that sort of helps global growth. Have you seen that help global growth? Because I wonder if that's an advantage for you guys.
In full transparency, I don't know if that gives us an advantage. It's also obviously when you look at it from our eyes, we don't look too much at what everybody else is doing, but we are just who we are, right? And we are right now with our international team of 104 people on the company. We celebrated 100 employee mark at the end of 2021, and those 100 people come from, I believe, close to 30 different nationalities. So we are just an international team, and we are 100% remote first. We don't have any offices. We live 100% remote. And I think that's just who we are. We are an international bunch of people, and we just want to give our global users a tool that's accessible for their teams. So Storyblok supports dozens of different languages from an editing experience. But we are also aware that a lot of businesses these days want to create global international experiences, and localization, translation is a big topic that comes with that. So I think it's just who we are. And with that said, I think it is a big topic for our customers and partners as well, because the great thing about the internet is you're not bound to markets and regions too much. And if you can localize your experiences through your CMS, that's a big factor for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And again, post-pandemic, I think Storyblok, since you arrived, has obviously been a remote-first company. I think maybe it's always a remote-first company, again, for obvious reasons. But yeah, I do wonder if it just it works very nicely for Storyblok that, companies will definitely be looking at setting up remote first environments, and suddenly they're open to hiring in Malaysia or Africa or wherever, whereas before they were just everyone's in San Francisco, everyone was in Boston, wherever they may be. And so it's an interesting one for me. But yeah, it's interesting. So back to 2021, right? Big year. Series A launch raised in, I think it was this time last year, right? Or February last year. Storyblok joined the MACH Alliance as well. Definitely head count, as you said, hit 100. I think from that's like triple the head count in that year. What worked, right? So I'm interested. Like, what was the strategy there, both from your perspective as a marketer and just again product perspective, sales perspective. When you look back on the year, where do you guys say, okay, this did really good for us? This strategy, we're going to do more of that, and what didn't work as well? And I know you can't share everything, but yeah.
Sure. I mean, it was a busy year overall in many regards for us. But to reflect on a few highlights, we started with, I think, 24 people on the team this year. We've grown to 100. We've quadrupled that. We've grown tremendously on the customer side as well, on the partner side as well. We've onboarded amazing partners, amazing customers in the e-commerce space, in the finance world, in the tech space in general. From a marketer, I always keep telling people that it's just a joy to work for a business, to work for a CMS vendor where the product is simply beloved by our clients, because that makes our marketing life so much easier. And I'm really happy that we were able to tell that through like customer stories, video case studies, Marco Polo in the e-commerce space, for example, one German-based, European-focused e-commerce business, but also others in like Deliveroo, Pizza Hut, Adidas. A lot of really cool case studies and stories there. On the Storyblok ecosystem overall, I think the great thing that we've seen this year is that it's not only us as Storyblok employees working on the product, working on basically educating the market about headless CMS and our product, but it's just a big ecosystem of community members that I think we do have a couple of thousand community members now on Discord. We do have close to 1,000 agency partners worldwide. We do have amazing ambassadors that basically advocate and evangelize daily for headless CMS and Storyblok. So that is really my personal highlight. From a more, let's say, hard KPI number perspective, one of the big things this year was for us to open up the beta program for Storyblok V2. So beginning of August, we've invited basically our community to try out our all new CMS experience in the beta program. And within the first, I believe, few weeks, we've onboarded more than 3,600 people on the beta program. I think since then we've shipped more than 1,000 T-shirts as goodies to those people. And we've gotten tremendous feedback on the CMS experience, because what's to come end of Q1 2022 is an all new CMS experience at Storyblok. because, as said in the beginning, at the end of the day, Storyblok as a product itself is basically based on the first prototype that was created in 2015. And with that said, we've introduced a new design system. We've open sourced that. So under blok.inc, you can find our own Storyblok design system. You can use that. Our community, our ambassadors, our people can use that and build their own apps on top of Storyblok, build their own integrations, custom plugins, and so on. So that really set the foundation for Storyblok V2. And yeah, right now we're super busy on launching Storyblok V2 later this year. And we really believe that with that, for us, that's the biggest milestone ever. That's the biggest product update ever. And yeah, we hope to provide an even more accessible, even faster CMS experience for editors, marketers, and developers. So yeah, that's definitely, I think, the biggest highlights. You mentioned the Series A. Yes, we've announced the Series A announcement in February this year. Big milestone on that funding round. We also celebrated this winter the market leadership in the headless CMS space on G2.com. So we're really amazed to see all those customer reviews and statements that come from our community. And yeah, it will go on. And I'm sure I forgot a lot of things, but I think those were definitely the highlights. To your point, what worked or what didn't work. I think as we move into next year, one thing we are more focused on, or I think we will generally be more focused on, is I wouldn't say localizing Storyblok, but I would say providing more local activity in our different regions. So Storyblok itself is used in more than 130 countries. And with that said, we want to grow into the United States. We want to grow in Europe. We want to grow in APAC. We are an international team in all those regions already, and we want to keep doubling down on that because at the end of the day, to some degree, CMS decisions, let's say, are also kind of local and might vary a bit depending on where your business is located.
Yes. Yeah. Again, so Storyblok being in 130 countries, I haven't got the data, but I'm sure that's not normal, right? That's not normal. I'm pretty sure, again, for the American vendors, I'm pretty sure that's not normal. So I don't know what it is. I think it has got something to do with just the makeup of Storyblok and the sort of the lens that you guys are looking through, and again the language and localization features you have. But that's not normal, and I'm interested to find out. We won't find out on this call, but I'm going to look into why is that? Why has there been such broad adoption in such quite frankly a very short space of time? Because there's a lot of vendors in other countries who have been going for much longer than you, and I'm pretty sure have nowhere near that kind of global penetration. Right? They may be bigger locally, again in America, and that's also saying a lot. But it's just interesting that you guys have managed to globally. It's interesting. It's interesting.
As said before, I don't have an answer to that. It is something that happened organically, you can argue. But on the other hand, we are an international team, right? As said before, it's 100 people, 30 countries. Sometimes people ask me, you are a Europe-based company, or yes, your company headquarter is in Austria because that's where the business location is at, and you have different offices. My answer to that is no, that's not true. If you join Storyblok as an employee and you think it's an Austrian company, or if it's a Europe-based company, that's not the case. We're just international. I wouldn't say we're Austrian or we're Europe. We have people everywhere. That's who we are, and we just live and breathe that. And we don't really see ourselves dedicated to one particular country, language, or however you would put it.
Yeah. That's so cool. And I think that is, I mean, again, now after the pandemic, it's maybe not unique, but I think it's not unique in the sense that a lot of companies used to be the other way. Again, we're based in San Francisco, we're based in LA, we're based in Boston. And now, yes, we've moved to this system, but Storyblok, it seems, you grew in a time where you grew organically like that from the beginning, and I think that made an impact. And it's interesting.
Just to add one side note on that, it also probably happened just because our two co-founders are not located in the same location, right? So just since day one, Dominic and Alex lived that remote lifestyle and still today, they live in different countries.
There you go then. That tells the story. Another thing I wanted to touch on was the joining of the MACH Alliance. So we kind of covered this, and you gave me a quote on this as well for some coverage we did on DXPReport.com. But I wanted to just really quickly retouch on that. How do you see, again, and from a marketer's perspective now, what's the benefit? The MACH Alliance we can talk about another time. I think most people know now what the MACH Alliance is, and if they don't, they can figure it out. Yeah. But I'm more interested in your perspective on MACH as an architecture, as a movement, from a marketer's perspective. What's the benefit here? Why is it an exciting time for marketers in this space, and what should they look at and take notice of? Again, if they're choosing a CMS, if their developers come to them and say, "Hey, we're choosing a CMS, which one should marketers have MACH in their minds?" And even though it's relatively technical, what does it mean to them? Or what should it mean to them?
Yeah, sure. And I think yes, we recently joined the MACH Alliance, but our thinking goes back, I think, to earlier 2021, because at the end of the day, when we at Storyblok speak with businesses out there that look for, let's say, CMS decisions, that want to change their marketing technology stack, what we would see at the end of the day is that 50% of the people that we speak with are fully on board with headless, do understand the benefits, also the business benefits, the tech benefits that come with an API-first best-of-breed approach. But on the other hand, there are still 50% of people that are like, what is that? Why should I care, right? And I think the MACH Alliance does a tremendous job in educating, especially the business audience, about the benefits that come with an API-first, headless, microservice-based setup. And so for us, it was quite an obvious, natural choice to join, because our marketing effort is also around educating, right? Educating people about the benefits that come with a headless strategy. And if you look at from a marketer's eyes, if you look at content, if you look at how businesses manage their content for different experiences, we would see a lot of struggles around having multiple platforms, multiple channels, having, again, maybe localized content. And with that, there are big efficiency problems, right? How can you provide cohesive experiences, what we would call across all channels, in an omni-channel, even better personalized way, if your content sits in silos? So from a marketer, I think it's really about educating the marketing audience on how a headless best-of-breed approach is helping you with that. And if you look at some survey data, I think there's like in 2020, there was a HubSpot survey about the state of content marketing. A lot of businesses struggle with their content strategies, and it's if I remember the statistics correctly, it's getting worse year by year when it comes to the efficiency of content marketing strategies. And I think what a lot of marketing teams haven't realized yet is the potential that comes with a MACH approach. So I guess the long story short, why did we join the MACH Alliance? Because we want to be part of this movement and educate marketers about the benefits and how we can help them solve their content struggles.
Okay, yeah, makes a ton of sense to me. One final question, I think, unless something else comes to mind, is, and maybe you kind of touched on it already, but maybe not. What's one thing you would change about the DXP space? So for me, the space is like in its infancy, right? And I had this conversation with another vendor, another episode, which is going to come out at some point. And we were just talking about the infancy of the DXP space, and especially when it comes to the headless players, the MACH players, API first players versus the legacy players and the older suites kind of thing. And when you look at the market share that those suites have, right, those legacy players, they still absolutely dominate the enterprise market, right? Absolutely dominate it. So it just shows that there's so much more room for growth when it comes to like the API first headless players. What's one thing maybe in through that paradigm? What's one thing you would change about that? But also, what's one thing you would just change about the industry in general?
It's I think two great angles or two great questions. I think one thing that I would maybe change from an industry perspective is let's care less about competing between traditional monolithic systems and headless MACH ready systems, because at the end of the day, that's not helping the real businesses out there that need a solution for a particular problem. At the end of the day, we as a, let's say, DXP industry, DXP space, should look at the future and provide easy access for anybody who might benefit from the space. So at the end of the day, it's about having a conversation like the two of us have now on a face-to-face level and really help each other, and not compete against each other when it comes to monolithic versus headless, or however you would put it, because that's not helping. That's not solving any business problem, any business struggles out there. That's not helping the marketers, and it's not helping the developers. So that's definitely one thing. I'm not sure if that's the case, but that's something I would like to emphasize. Sorry, what was the second angle?
I gave like two questions in one. I mean, let's rephrase it. Let's just say, what do you see in the DXP space or the CMS space? And again, this could get into like commerce. It could go into other areas now as well. What's one thing you'd like to fix? Is there something you can see that this needs to be fixed other than what you just said?
I think at some point, I'm not sure if it's something to be fixed, but I think at some point in the future, and I don't want to give an estimate on when that's to come, we won't have any discussions or conversations around, do we go headless? Do we go with composable DXP? Do we stick with our monolithic approach? Because we believe at some point, the future is API first. The future is microservice based, is cloud native. So that will become the default state. I truly believe that myself, that's the default state at some point in the future. For sure, there are always use cases, there are always situations where you don't need that. But I think the default state will switch. And I think that will be an exciting point, because at that point, we as vendors won't differentiate anymore around those factors, but we will differentiate on who does the best job for what use case, be it in the e-commerce space, be it in other industries and verticals. I think it's still early. I think you said that before. For most industries, I think the reason why we see big traction in certain industries is because those industries might have the fast mover approach, might see as early adopters the benefits that come with that MACH approach right now. But we just see we will just see that being rolled out on a really huge scale.
That's an interesting one. So and I agree with you. There will come a time where whether going composable, going headless, or going MACH ready won't be a choice. It will just be like, well, of course, that's where everyone's heading, and that's a fair statement when you see some of the suite players, some of those legacy players, also adopting that kind of language, and they're trying to shift their products towards that way anyway. So if you want, we're not really even saying anything controversial actually, but it's interesting that you said. Go ahead.
Just one example on that, and we like to speak about omnichannel, right? We like to speak about the different platforms where you serve your content, and yes, still a lot of experiences are created for the web. That's great. But if you look back 5 years, 10 years, there was no mobile app experience. There were no smartwatches where you as a business have to care about, how do I actually bring my content to my Apple Watch? How do I bring my content to Alexa? As we look at 2022, I think there's a lot of buzz around the whole metaverse, AR, VR experiences, right? So how do all of those experiences are based on the foundation of content in some way or another. So how do you bring that? How do you bring your content, be it existing on you, to the metaverse, to different AR experiences?
Yeah, that's so interesting. And and going back to what you mentioned before, there's going to be different ways or they will evolve different ways for vendors to differentiate themselves. I think those two ways are ways that have been around for so long, but I feel like they've stagnated. So one is what you just said, which is the omnichannel stuff. So everyone's been speaking about omnichannel for many, many years. Since headless came about, we could do omnichannel, it's great. But really and truly, there's no real support or guidance or real avenues for marketers specifically, but also devs, to sort of take with the CMS and say, okay, we're going to launch a Tesla app. We're going to launch an app for refrigerators or smartwatches or Alexa skills. It can be done. It is being done, but it hasn't exactly exploded like you would have thought it would explode 5 years ago. And again, most of that is to do with the fact that the marketer experience hasn't been up to scratch. We've been, vendors have been busy building that up. And I think once we get there, and once the market does shift towards, headless first, API first, that will be one place where I can see vendors saying, okay, we're going to make it now. We've streamlined the web experience and the app experience for you to build apps and websites and preview content in real time. And now we're going to help you build AR experiences and VR experiences and preview that. And we're going to help you build, natively Apple Watch, interfaces and or anything, whatever it may be. I think that would be an interesting place to go.
And I would agree, but I would also disagree in some way, because if you look at smartwatches, right, the penetration of smartwatches, I don't recall when Apple Watch was released, but it's not 10 years old, right? It's not a product that is a decade old. Alexa, same thing. I agree. It's probably not. Most businesses don't care about creating content for Alexa, but I think there are more businesses that care about creating Alexa skills today than there have been last year, than there have been 5 years ago. And that will increase for sure. And I think the same thing we will see with AR and VR experiences. And I think there was and this tweet there was an interesting statistic from Shopify, I believe a year ago. They tweeted about conversion rates on websites or online shops in particular, where they would compare an AR experience compared to no AR experience. So how do are more people buying the product if you have an AR experience that comes with that, where you can actually preview the product in better, more sophisticated ways compared to just pictures, for example? And I don't want to recall the statistic, but there was a tremendous difference between AR versus no AR experience. And again, don't ask me how old the AR technology is, but that's something we've been seeing in the last few years, and we will continuously see to become more and more important.
Yes. And this whole Apple thing is interesting as well, because I'm pretty sure, there's a whole bunch of articles written on this concept, right? And I may be wrong about the exact details of this, but the iPhone didn't really take off until the App Store took off, right? The App Store actually accelerated the growth of the iPhone. And the reason for that is, the technology was there like a year, 2 years before the App Store really like sort of developers really got onto it. But once developers, third-party developers started to create interesting apps, and then other businesses saw that as a business opportunity, and a competition began. That's when that technology took off, even though the technology was already there for a while. So I think we may see the same thing. We're waiting for someone to create that super good AR app, that super good AR experience or VR experience, and that's going to be the catalyst. It could happen, very, very, very slowly, and then all at once. And then at that point, the vendors say, okay, we need to like really double down on how we're going to help marketers build AR experiences without developers, that kind of.
Absolutely, it's not like sometimes people say, it needs to be consumer driven, right? Consumers need to jump on it in order to see that growing. But as you're saying, it's a shared effort, right? If we as businesses can provide really interesting use cases and cool examples, people will give it a try. People most naturally have an instinct to try new stuff, and for sure, it's that sweet spot.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good point. It's a sweet spot. Excellent. Okay, it's been great. I've really enjoyed this. Let's definitely do this again. I think a couple months time, let's jump back on and discuss how Q1's gone and all that kind of stuff. What's working, what's not working. But yeah, I really appreciate you coming on and giving me your time, Thomas. Thank you for being a great guest.
Yeah, thanks, Kaya, for having me. Let's do that again.
No worries.